Oh my goodness gracious, kickoff is coming so close. So hey, we have one of our best friends of the program, Justin Thin of 247 Sports, to talk about all things MSU football. You already know it's going to be a good one. Let's go.
Are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is how close we are to kickoff. It is right around the corner. I can smell the cinnamon whiskey. I can feel the 50-50 raffle tickets filling up my pocket. I could feel myself already starting to lose my voice because, yes, Friday night is so close, and we have Justin Thin of 247 Sports on the program. Justin, let's just get a quick vibe check from you, man. How on earth are you doing on this amazing day during game week? Yes.
Very, very excited. It's NFL Cup Day, so
I know.
fully tuned into the Eagles. Think it's gonna be a good NFL season, but I guess we don't have to talk about that if that's not what the audience cares about.
We can mix in some of it. Sure, yeah, to
No.
decide who the backup quarterback is going to be for Philadelphia. I'm sure that's why
Gardner
everyone's tuned
Minshew,
into.
Minshew Mania.
Hey now, let's go. There we go. But no, obviously we got a lot of MSU football stuff to talk about. But before we get to any of that, I just got to tell the folks, hey, please rate, review, and subscribe to this here podcast or YouTube channel if you like to, if you're watching on YouTube. And also, if you like the old-fashioned email way, lockedonspartans@gmail.com is the place to find us. Justin, I'm fired up. A lot of state fans are fired up. Look, we got Michigan State football. Friday night, stripe the stadium. If you're even, wear green. If you're odd, wear white. Just had to throw that out there. There's plenty to be excited about, but in your opinion, here's a really ridiculously broad question to kick this thing off, but what one thing should be at the top of Michigan State fans' list for like reasons to be excited about this season? If you can narrow it down to just one favorite thing.
Personally, for me, it's hopefully getting to see a much improved defense. Getting to see a unit in the defensive backfield where all of last year's corners and safeties return. All of them will be healthier than they were at the tail end of last year. If you remember watching closely, every single person on Michigan State's roster back in the defensive backfield was improving, whether it was Ronald Williams getting much better from the Northwestern game, whether it was Charles Brantley getting more acclimated to Division I football, whether it was Marquis Lowry returning from his first injury and getting better. But if you also recall, every single one of those guys did get hurt around the time of the Michigan-Purdue games, and they were limping around in the Purdue game. Some of them missed that game. The Ohio State game, even the safeties were like barely walking. So health and a return and stability make that room very exciting. And then you also factor in Amir Speed coming in, joining the fold, probably cornerback one, bumping everyone down a tier of responsibility, and suddenly very, very exciting defensive back room. And then the linebacker core and the defensive tackle room are, I think, Michigan State's two biggest strengths and are probably their top. They're probably top 1, 2, or 3 in both of those categories, I'd say. Linebacker-wise, you have Aaron Brule coming in. You have Jacoby Windman coming in. You have Cal Halliday returning, who's all freshman. You have Darius Snow moving to linebacker. So those 4 right there are going to be very solid. And then whatever you can get out of Maan Autiote, Ben Van Sumeren, and some of the others will be a bonus as well. But an awesome linebacker room, defensive tackle. I could go on and on the same way.
Oh, yeah.
The only thing is defensive end. I'm curious to see who emerges beyond Jeff Petrowski. And I also do want to know what kind of rotation they use at linebacker and maybe even the scheme, if they use a stand-up edge on every down, maybe just third down. So there's a lot of exciting things to watch for, and there's also a lot of potential. So the defensive scheme and performance are the top of my list for what to watch for on Friday.
You know, that funnels right into what I wanted to talk about is, look, you're an insider's insider. You're very plugged into the program, but also, too, as we lead up to kickoff, Mel Tucker doesn't let anyone know anything outside the program. No depth chart, very short answers at the press conference. So even for someone as plugged in as you are, what are you looking forward to the most on Friday as far as just like getting information? Is it seeing, how they're going to use their front seven. Is Jacoby Windman going to be playing stand-up edge?
Yeah.
So is that on the top of your list? And if so, then what's number 2 on your
Yeah.
list? Because there's no real position battles here that are, hot. Every position seems to be
Right.
pretty short up. But so what do you have for us?
Yeah. I guess specific to Friday, I would like to see Michigan State get out to enough of a lead where they can bring in some of the backup offensive linemen. I want to see how Brandon Baldwin does at left tackle, maybe how Ethan Boyd does at right tackle. Gino Vandermark in the interior are supposed to be up there in the playing group as far as the reserves go. So I want to see how those guys stack up against top-tier MAC talent before maybe having to play against some Big Ten competition. So that would be next up on my list. But yeah, just kind of like I touched on earlier for number 1, it's just how are they going to line up in that front 6? I have mentioned in the past that I would like to see them kind of use Windman in a way that Penn State used Jesse Luketa last year, where that's your defensive line does not suddenly use a nose tackle and become a 3-man front. They still have 2 regular defensive tackles, a traditional defensive end, and then it's a straight swap with Windman coming in for a defensive end and just using that on all 3 downs, not just as a third down specialist. But maybe they have the reasons for why that may not work. I guess we'll see. But that's what I would like to see happen. But if not, I'm just very curious to see exactly how they're going to structure their front 6.
And, that leads into a specific question about a certain player that I'm going to turn into a broad question because, Chris Bogle is opposite of Jeff Petrowski. We all know Jeff Petrowski returning from last year. Chris Bogle, the Florida transfer. Is he standing out in practice, do you know? And if so, awesome, great. Or is there other names, too, that have really surprised you as like, oh, wow, I'm hearing this guy is really standing out during practice. Maybe we'll get to see him a lot on Friday. Who are the guys that we should keep our eye out on that might surprise us a little bit? Is a short way to ask that question.
Yeah. It's funny. I haven't heard anything about Chris Vogel all camp. Haven't also heard anything about anyone that would be behind him on the depth chart. So either those guys are not standing out beyond Jeff P, or they're just doing a very, very good job of keeping that a mystery because that's where there could be a lot of
I like
fluidity.
That. Yeah.
So
I like that.
Yeah. So that's actually why I was kind of saying I hope that they go with that Jacoby Windman stand-up route, just because there's not a ton of reason to be excited just yet about the other defensive end spot. But hey, maybe it's just a mystery, and Bogle's going to come out and be a beast. So. Yeah, in terms of Bogle, honestly, I don't know what to tell fans to expect, but just as a whole, I think some guys you can expect to be excited for. Izmir speed. I know it's a boring answer, but he's just going to be something different than what Michigan State fans are used to. Both of the running backs. I know I was higher on Broussard than Berger at the time that they both transferred in, but I've heard that Berger has had a great camp and going to be very excited to see how those carries are split. And Keon Coleman, he's going to be the most likely the starting Z receiver on the other side of Jaden Reed. So maybe we'll look to see if Jeremy Bernard can get in there in the fourth quarter some. But those are the things I think the fans might be surprised by, or just if you haven't followed too closely, might make you say, who's that guy over there? So that's what we're looking at.
There we go. I actually asked this question on the Can't Read, Can't Write podcast. They were fishing for mailbag questions, as us podcasters do, and I threw one their way. And the question was this. It's only three words. You ready for this? You sitting down? You ready to answer this one? Who is him? Who is going to be him for Michigan State this year, Justin? That's right. And if you're not incredibly plugged in online and you don't know what that question's even asking, who's going to be the real deal is the layperson's way of asking that question for anyone I just confused. But who is him, Justin? Who is him?
My answer would have been Jacoby Windman if I knew exactly how they were going to use him.
Sure.
If I knew that they were going to use him as a stand-up edge more than a traditional linebacker, he would have been my answer. But if they have him dropping back into coverage at least 40% of the time, I don't know if that's maximizing his skill set, so we may not see him fill up the box score and make as many electrifying plays. So if not him, as being
If
him.
not him, then who is him? Yeah, if not
Yes.
him, then who is him?
I
That's right.
got to ride with my guy Jerk Broussard, who I've been hyping
Okay.
up since the beginning.
Wow, let's go.
I know we are all hesitant to say anybody's going to be the next Kenneth Walker, and he's not going to be the next Kenneth Walker, but
Sure.
he has a lot of Kenneth's qualities, other than one. So he's a guy that he plays tougher than his size. He'll run through arm tackles. He'll break tackles. He has very good vision at the line, like K9 did. He has great agility and lateral bounce. Makes guys miss all the time. That's why he won 2020 Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year. So we're not just hyping up some random Mickey Mouse player
Right.
here.
Yeah.
This is a guy that is a very, very established and great running back. The only thing he doesn't have is K9's top gear of speed.
Okay.
So if you kind of remember, like K9 would turn some of those 6, 7, 8 yard runs into 25, 30, 35, 40 yard runs. I think he might turn a 6, 8 yard run into an 18 yard run, which, hey, you'll take. It's
fine.
Moving you down the field rather slower than Kenneth did, but still at a rather quick pace. So I think if you combine the fact that he doesn't have breakaway speed and the fact that he's undersized, you're not going to see him get drafted, at least in the first 5 rounds of the NFL draft, I would say. I'd give him a 6 to UDFA grade. But I think in terms of his college production, he's probably going to be one of the most productive running backs Michigan State has had, other than K9, since probably Le'Veon.
I'll take that. That's fine with me.
Yeah.
I'll sign. Yeah, where do I sign the dotted line for that one right there? There we go, man. So
Yeah.
Look at us off and running. But Justin, I'm so sorry. I just gotta take the face off the screen for a hot second. And now, unfortunately, everyone on YouTube, yes, it's me. It's my full-size face. I'm sure this is the last thing you want to see. But hey, how about the first sports app that you want to hear about? That's right. We're talking about BetOnline. I'm back to talk off your ear about it. Shoot, I should never got rid of Justin. We could have talked about, are the Eagles going to hit their over-under win total for the season, which, of course, is at BetOnline. As far as many other NFL bets, college football bets, go into week 1 with BetOnline, the number 1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and yes, even golf. That's right. BetOnline continues to be the best and top online resource for all your sports wagering information, scores, and podcasts. They got you covered top to bottom. So what on earth are you waiting for? Head to BetOnline today. Use your mobile device, learn more about the trends in action, check it all out. BetOnline, where the game starts. And as we if I could talk properly, as we welcome back the wonderful Justin Thind, I wanted to say, hey, thank you all so much for making Locked On Spartans your first listen every single day as we are gearing up to kickoff. Justin, let's talk about the youngins, the little tykes on this team, the true freshmen. Should we expect to see any this early in the season, or is this just a quick answer of no? What are we feeling for the true freshmen?
I think this class is going to have a lot of guys that are going to play as freshmen. I don't know if the first week necessarily would be the time. I think at some positions you could see that. If they get out to a rather significant lead, I wouldn't be surprised if you see Zion Young come in and get some snaps at defensive end. I don't think he was even ranked in the top 600, but I was told, I think starting around signing day all the way until today, that the staff thinks that he was probably the most underrated player in the previous class. Back then in December and January, I didn't dismiss it, but I just made a mental note of it. I was like, okay, cool. And I just kept it to myself. But then camp started and you start seeing him actually on the field. You start seeing just the eye test that he passes and some more feedback you get. And suddenly you're like, okay, this is now, they were telling me this in December. Now I'm hearing it in April and I'm hearing it again in August. And suddenly you start to piece together that this is going to be one of the biggest standouts of the 2022 class for Michigan State. Jeremy Bernard, as I mentioned earlier, he's going to be a guy that I expect to be in the playing group this year. Wide receiver 4, maybe 5. We'll see. Montori Foster, I guess, is also right up there. But those are the 2 that I would expect to play this week. I think down the road, you can also see Caleb Coley start to get some run. But I think maybe they might try to play the starting defensive back group a little longer just to get continuity since they're playing together for the first time. So they might just give him extended run for camaraderie purposes and making sure all the communications and calls are locked down. There's some other standout guys like Alex Van Summeren that would play if they had the need, but they're loaded at defensive tackle right now.
Right.
I guess Jack Stone, if he beats out Ben Patton for the kicking job, and I guess beats out Rusnak too. But there's a lot of guys that have the talent to play right away. Don't have a lot of need for a lot of them, but I think there's going to be some freshman contributions this year.
And I'm going to rehash an old storyline from last week. Dillon Tatum, he goes from the safety room to the cornerback room. Davion Prim, the darling of spring ball at running back, is now also with the cornerbacks as well. So, the fan base is talking like, does this mean the cornerback room actually needs some help, and that's why we're pulling Tatum and Prim into the mix? Or is it just a matter of fact that, okay, the running back room is already 6, if not maybe 7 deep, and Dillon Tatum has always kind of been like a tweener coming out of high school.
Yeah.
Like, he's really a bona fide athlete. So how do you just dissect that? Or, how do you dissect the whole situation, pulling those guys in the cornerback room?
So if my understanding is correct, Michigan State this year no longer plans to use their nickelback spot in a way where it's a thumper like Darius Snow kind of was. And when Dillon Tatum signed and they were talking about Dillon Tatum's usage in December, at that point, the plan was to continue using this nickel thumper kind of role, and that's why he was labeled as such. But now that the nickelback spot is a pure cover corner, the options really were to move Dillon Tatum back behind the ball to safety, or to move him to linebacker. He's not a linebacker, especially not at this point of his career.
Right.
So really, once they changed the designation of their nickelback spot, naturally, I think cornerback was the spot for him. I guess they could have put him at safety, but they prefer to have him closer to the ball. He's physical. He's a guy that likes to tackle. He can provide run support. And I think for that reason, they're going to be calling him a cornerback. But really, that was more of a scheme change, more than Dillon Tatum changing positions per se. For Prim, I'm still not sure what to make of that. I think when Mel was saying he was impressed by Prim, I think he was saying impressed by him as a player and as an athlete, not necessarily as a running back. So maybe Mel figured maybe we can use his athleticism at corner and see if he's a fit there. But I'm still not entirely sure what to make of him. But no, I don't think the cornerback room is that much of a worry. If you start looking at all the corners they have, obviously it's the starters and Ronald Williams and Amir Speed, and I'm guessing Chester Kimbrough at nickel. And then you also probably have Charles Brantley in that mix. Then you have Marquis Lowry. You have Kari Crump. You have Caleb Coley. So I think one time I listed it out for a message board post, and I was at like 9 scholarship guys that might be in the hunt for playing time at that unit. So they're not necessarily hurting there for playing time. I mean, for guys to fill playing time.
Okay, and that brings a lot of clarity and comfort to us State fans because look, understandably so. Some of us are a little skittish about cornerbacks, especially after all the scars left from last season. So okay, that's good clarity right there. And speaking of clarity or lack thereof, Mel Tucker was asked about the kickers on Mondays with Mel, his last press conference before the season. And I'm just going to take this time to talk about my favorite position group to talk about, the kicker position. If you had to bet, I don't know, 5 mortgage payments on it, who's trotting out for the first field goal? Let's call it the 39-yarder on the left hash first quarter. Who is going to be taking that kick, in your opinion? The new kid, Ben Patton, Jack Stone, or old face Steven Rusnak?
Well, first off, Matt, you assuming they're going to need to kick a field goal is
that's true.
Very pessimistic of you.
I'm a bad fan. That's right. That's a good point. That's a very good point.
The answer, in my opinion, or I guess my prediction for who it would be, is Ben Patton.
Okay.
I think what you're going to see is probably some inconsistency out of him this year. But at the end of the day, I think his floor is the highest. He's a guy that has already made a 49-yard kick against Alabama in double overtime of the Iron Bowl. Neither Jack Stone or Spencer Rusnak have made a kick anywhere close to that in their FBS careers. Stone, obviously, because he's a freshman. Rusnak, because, he hasn't made such a kick. So you're kind of looking at a guy that has done more than the other guys in that room. but also I believe he missed a gimme or two when he was at Auburn. So I think it's going to be a shaky kicking performance from the unit this year. But what I kind of remind people is that isn't necessarily going to be a step down from last year. I think Coughlin was kicking about 63% his senior year. I think the number was like 11 for 18 or something close to that. So it's going to be an uncertain season for the kickers. It's going to be probably not the most consistent, but I don't think that necessarily means it's a big step down.
All right. Fair enough. No, that okay. So in your, if you're the coach, you're sending out those 3 kickers and also the punter Bryce Behringer to the sidelines in street clothes on Friday. Like you're just no kicking, no punting. Like this offense is going to score every time they get the ball. So we don't got to worry about it. We don't got to worry about it.
Yeah, for me, I would honestly just get rid of kickers in terms of
aggressive.
Okay, so I should be more specific. I am opposed to extra points. It is my opinion. It is my opinion, more so in the NFL than in college football, because the extra points are further. Percentages of them going in are lower. I would honestly just go for a 2-point conversion on every single touchdown, especially if I was an NFL coach. So I being an extremist is not the person you should ask for fair assessments on the need for a kicker.
Fair enough. All right. At the time of recording right now, this has not hit the internet streets yet, but Justin, you got a fun little article at 247Sports coming out. It's a true or false thing. You give a prompt, you answer if it's true or false, and then you give a good explanation of why. Do you mind if we tease that a little bit right now?
Yes.
And just give us two of them, 3 of them, maybe?
Okay.
Yeah, why not? Let's get nuts. You ask me the question,
okay,
true or false, and then we'll bebop around and banter about it. How's that sound? Get everyone off to the rest of their day with this one.
Sounds good. Okay, Matt.
Hit me.
True or false?
Okay.
Michigan State fans should be worried about MSU's offensive line depth.
Well, if you've listened to this show, you already know my answer, and that is a all caps TRUE. That is going to be a true statement because I'm scared. I'm scared.
Yeah.
I'm scared. I'll say it. I'm man enough to say it. I'm scared.
Yeah, that is the answer I wrote. I think you have 6 guys on the offensive line that you will play in a competitive game. Last year, Michigan State had about 8 to 10 where they were, regardless of score, so not talking about blowouts, they were rotating guys in, almost like a defensive line, just to keep guys fresh. They were going about 8, 9, 10 deep. I think when Campbell was still healthy, it was 10. This year, that number in those situations, I think, is 6. It's going to be the 5 starters. So from left to right, it's going to be Horace, Duplain, Samac. I'm thinking Matt Carrick at right guard, and then Spencer Brown at right tackle. And if the Washington State transfer Brian Green does lose the starting right guard role to Matt Carrick, I would expect him to play a ton regardless, giving a break to the interior offensive linemen. So those are 6 guys you'll see play a ton of snaps. After that, I don't know if there's anybody worth rotating in just for freshness purposes in a close game. I think Gino Vandermark might be the guy that's next up in the playing group. And then after that, Brandon Baldwin and Ethan Boyd at tackle, I personally would expect them to only bring those guys in if there's an injury or a blowout. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Spencer Brown to Brandon Baldwin gap isn't as big as it sounds like right now, or maybe it closes throughout the season. But yeah, right now they have one guy right now that you would bring in terms of intentional distribution of snaps, and that's about it. So the depth is concerning right now.
Okay, awesome. So we can't kick. Our offensive line depth is concerned. What a emotional roller coaster we have been on this episode. All right, that's one. Do you mind giving us another one to tease your upcoming article for 247Sports? That's right.
The difficulty of replacing Jalen Naylor will be very high. True or false?
I like this one a lot because it is. I think it's false, and it's for like the craziest sentence that could be said out loud. Like, our receiver room is going to take a step up next season, even though the only guy we lost went to the NFL. Like, patently, that's just a crazy thing to say, but when you look into it, like I think you're going to walk us through in a hot second, I think the receivers get somehow even better next year, even though, Jalen Naylor, all he did was just go to the Vikings. So, I love our receivers this year.
Yeah. So that is the correct answer in my opinion. So the way I look at it is Jalen Naylor was a great player, stretched defenses all the way down the field, had some explosive big plays, part of some of MSU's best moments last year. Vikings drafted him for a reason. However, all of that being said, his durability combined with his limited route tree limited him to 37 catches last year, which still a good amount, an impressive mark. But for context, Trey Mosley, the third option, 35 catches, 2 less than Jalen Naylor. So while Naylor was a good, effective weapon, he didn't have a usage rate of somebody that is very hard to replace. And in terms of looking at that limited route tree where he ran a go route better than anyone I've seen at Michigan State in a long time, in those short and intermediate routes on, say, a 3rd and 6, and you need a quick slant or a hitch route or out route, he was not oftentimes able to create separation there. That is the reason he went in the 6th round instead of the 4th round or even the 3rd round. And I think when you have a guy like Keon Coleman on the field, Jeremy Bernard has also a very refined route tree, but I hesitate to just put him in the same tier as Keon just yet. So we'll look at Keon just for a second. He's a guy that is going to be able to provide red zone targets, where Jalen Naylor actually was not also known in those close yardage things. He was more of a stretch to field guy. I think they'll be upgrading in the red zone, and I think they'll be upgrading in those high leverage, short yardage, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6 situations, both where Jalen Naylor was not a highly effective receiver. Now, the team as a whole might have less touchdowns of longer than 30 yards now that Naylor is gone, but I think you might see a higher success rate in the red zone and on 3rd down with Keon on the field than Jalen Naylor. And then Jeremy Bernard, who Jaden Reed came on the SD for All show and actually said he's a much more refined route runner and receiver at this point than Reed was as a freshman. He kind of gives me some hope to have a little bit of that Jalen Naylor to him, but to say that he would be as good as Jalen Naylor immediately as Naylor was when he became a 6th-round draft pick would be foolish. But by the end of the year, I don't know how big the gap would be, especially when a lot of the times Jalen Naylor wasn't even healthy at that point of the year in order to give a contribution, unfortunately. So that's the way I look at it. And even Montorie Foster, Christian Fitzpatrick, Cade McDonald, some of those guys, they'll be able to produce in some spots as well.
See, getting us out the door with some positivity on a high note. You know, here, let's do one more, and I'll ask you this one. Michigan State fans are going to have fun on Friday. True or false? Let's go.
I would say that is true.
Oh, we're so back. True or false? I'm going to eat my body weight in Amish pretzels at Spartan Stadium on Friday.
If you don't fill up on your Irish whiskey, then possibly.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, whatever's left after the Fireball, 48 High Noon, 68 White Claws, and 128 Miller Lights. Yeah, we'll see how many more I can fill my body after that. But no, cannot wait for kickoff. I'm sure all the fans can. I know you can either, whether it's the Spartans or your Philadelphia Eagles, Justin.
That's right.
Thank you so much for taking your time, sharing with knowledge and everything else that you give to us at Locked On Spartans. And thank you, everyone else, for watching, listening. You guys are the best. Justin, any final words before we shut the door on you?
Nope, just excited for the season to start, excited to provide content, and just wanted to thank you and thank the fans for always showing interest in it, and going to be a good season, I think.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Justin, you're the man. Great friend of the program. Stay awesome. And stay awesome, everyone else listening and watching. Love you all. Go Green. Let's go. So close to kickoff. Oh, my God. Whoa.